Today we're taking a look at the latest Boston Bruins trade rumors. They've been linked to some pretty significant players. We want to take a look at the possibilities of them going after a guy like Patrik Laine or Noah Hanifin, what players might be involved and what the outcome of that could be. We also have another RFA signing to look at today and all the latest in the 2021 NHL Return. We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a few things to discuss here today. Before we jump into the Bruins rumors, I want to take a look at a signing here, which was an RFA signing. The first one we've had here in a little while. The St. Louis Blues have come to terms with RFA defenseman Jake Walman on a 2-year contract. He will still be an RFA at the end of this contract, but he will be an RFA with arbitration rights. So obviously that new contract likely won't get drug on here so long into the offseason. Now, Walman's been a pretty decent prospect defenseman for them, trying to find his way into a regular spot in the Blues lineup, which has been tough because they've had a lot of great depth here on the blue line. Obviously, and they still will, even though they lost Pietrangelo. They did replace him with Torrey Krug, so it's still going to be tough for Walman to find a regular spot, but depending on what other moves the Blues make, you never know. So this is a 2-year contract, but in year 1, it's a 2-way deal, so he'll likely spend most of the time in the minors, but in year 2 it is a 1-way contract, so it gives him an opportunity, a much greater opportunity at least in year 2 to try to stick around full time in the NHL in the second year. So obviously it'll at the very least pay him a bigger salary. So if he does end up playing in the minors, at least he'll make more money. And of course, teams like to try to keep those kind of players on 1-way deals in the NHL if possible, if things work out. Now in the first year as well, he does get a little bit higher than normal AHL salary. He's paid $100,000 at the AHL level, and in both years his NHL salary would be $725,000. So decent signing, and stick around in the Blues prospect system here and see if he can get a regular spot sometime in the near future. Now, before we jump into the latest on the return to play for the NHL, there's a lot to talk about there. I do want to focus a little bit on the trade rumors today on the Boston Bruins. They've been really the team that's had the most information and names popping up in the rumor mill over the past week or so. We want to revisit a couple of scenarios and see what they might be up to. So like every day there's new articles coming out on the Bruins and what the latest talk is around that team. We've seen a variety of things. So first up, I want to take a look at an article from a few weeks back. I never talked about it here on the channel, but I did see the linkage in the Boston Bruins maybe talking about maybe pursuing Patrik Laine. Now this was more from the article was from Boston Hockey Now, and it was written more from the perspective of their opinion that the Bruins shouldn't be going after Laine. Of course, the Bruins, have been linked to a lot of things this offseason, and I'm still not completely sure that Don Sweeney really knows what he wants to do. I think there's a lot of options on the table, and I guess we'll have to see once we have a little bit more concrete return to play information here on when things are going to happen. You'll probably see a lot of things ramp up. Once we know when the season is going to be and the schedule, you're going to see a lot of teams kind of be somewhat forced into making some decisions and somewhat quickly perhaps as well, so that their players are all ready to roll. But obviously this article before talked about the Laine trade to the Boston Bruins, the fact that they're going to need another top 6 scorer. Like I mentioned here a lot lately, the Bruins core is going to likely have a lot of turnover in the near future. You've already seen guys like obviously David Krejci, Tuukka Rask, Jaro Halak. They've all got players here that are in the final year of their contract. There's no guarantee here that Chara returns next year as well. Torrey Krug left via free agency. Big changes. You still got guys like Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak. They should still be with the team for some time. But the remaining players around them that have been there for a while could be a lot of interchangeable parts. Now, obviously, Patrik Laine would be a major upgrade over a lot of their other forwards when it comes to goal scoring, especially a guy like Jake DeBrusk, who has a lot of question marks on his future. Will he be signed? Will he be traded? There's a lot of uncertainty there. I mean, and if he does get signed, what kind of deal are we looking at? I'm going to assume probably a short-term contract, 2 years, maybe $4 million-ish is probably what we're looking at in that regard if he does indeed get signed and instead of being dealt, or even if he is traded, wherever he signs. That would be my estimate on a contract for forward Jake DeBrusk. But obviously, if the Winnipeg Jets and the Boston Bruins, we're going to have serious conversations. I would think that the starting point for the Winnipeg Jets to really consider that is probably going to be Brandon Carlo from the blue line, which would give them a really solid right shot defenseman who's really solid defensively. That's something that they're really looking for. They probably would want DeBrusk in return, who obviously isn't the same kind of player as Laine, but somebody who can score and still play top 6 minutes for them. And I would not be surprised if they want an additional piece or two in there as well. I think from what I've seen and heard about the Bruins and a lot of these trades that they're talking about, one player that seems to be kind of off limits for the prospects in the Bruins system is Jack Studnicka. Now, Studnicka is a player that the Bruins are quite high on. They feel could be a regular as early as the coming season, and he seems like he is the one prospect that they do not want to move. A lot of other guys, when it comes to Vakanainen, his name's been out there. Even Trent Frederick a little bit, who is obviously not quite as a young prospect as he used to be. And obviously those are guys that'd be more willing to part with if it came down to it. But Studnicka is a player that they really don't want to part with, and I can certainly understand why. But for certain trades, like a guy like Laine, for example, it might be worth it. It's difficult to say, and I'm sure the Jets would be asking for a lot, and therefore that may not happen. But, this article, like I said, from Boston Hockey Now from a few weeks back was basically saying that Don Sweeney hasn't done enough this offseason to really get this team ready. We haven't seen anything significant here. We've seen them lose Krug. They haven't signed DeBrusque. They haven't signed Chara. And at this point, they have more questions than answers about this team. And can they really get back to contending like they've done and being one of the top teams in the regular season for like they have been for the last number of years? So obviously they felt that a Laine trade would be the way for Don Sweeney to kind of end the offseason on a super high note and really kind of swing for the fences and make a blockbuster deal. But we've also seen a lot more linkage to the Calgary Flames. Now, the Laine trade, like I said, has written more from the Boston Hockey Now's perspective that they feel the Bruins should do that and what the package likely would be involved, whereas the Flames rumors have been a little bit more linked to NHL insiders that have been having more inside knowledge. I think there's actually more to that one about conversations taking place. The Bruins have been linked to Hanifin for a long time, but they have a situation here in Boston that they kind of have holes on the blue line as well as the forward group, and it's just difficult to say how Don Sweeney is leaning here. Now, the Hanifin trade was rumored to be possibly Hanifin for Carlo, but I had also mentioned that there was a lot of talk that other players could be involved, but they were to be the two main pieces. From the Flames' perspective, they get the right shot D instead of the left shot. They get somebody in Carlo who they can probably get on a better value contract and they kind of solidify that right side of their blue line. And for the Bruins, they get Hanifin, the local boy who they've been high on for a significant period of time. They can also get some cost certainty as well, where he signed for several more years. So I guess from a Boston Bruins trade rumor perspective, if you're Don Sweeney, and I know there's lots of Bruins fans that watch this channel, so I really want you to comment, let me know what you think. As far as what moves the Bruins should do, because of the uncertainty of the blue line, the lack of experience that could be there, because of the holes that have been left by some of their guys that are possibly not coming back, and in the forward group, with the uncertainty around DeBrusque, and the uncertainty over that second line center position too, with Krejci maybe not coming back after next year where he's got a big contract, how do you think Don Sweeney should end the offseason? If he's going to make one of these big trades and really make something significant here for the Bruins, should he do a trade to really solidify the blue line, or should they be going after a sniper like Laine to really add an extra offensive weapon up front? Let me know your thoughts, and we'll discuss further down in the comment section. Now, on to the latest information on the NHL's return to play. Yesterday was quite a contentious day, and our video last night kind of outlined what we were hearing at that point in time, and there's a little bit more information that have come to light since then, and conversations and negotiations are going to continue on this. And I guess basically at this point, if there's any hope of the NHL season starting January 1st, they really need to get their act together and get this hammered out as quickly as probably like in the next week or so, ideally definitely before the end of November. But yesterday, the players really felt betrayed, I guess is a good word to use. And when the information was first presented to them, there was apparently over 100 members of the NHLPA on the call listening to what the proposals were. And it was like a big sigh, gasp. They could not believe the owners are coming back on a deal that was just worked out a few months back, looking for increased escrow as well as increased salary deferral. Now, two options, I guess, according to Elliot Friedman, were presented to the players. Both of them really weren't all that favorable. Now, keep in mind the NHL players have already agreed to defer 10% of their salary. That was part of the CBA negotiations that took place before their original return to play to complete the playoffs. And they also hammered out how escrow was going to work. They agreed for 20% for the coming season, and then it gradually goes down. How the options being presented to the players were for the following. Option one was the payment deferral goes from 10% to 20%, and escrow goes from 20 to 25. So obviously, as we know, escrow is the dirtiest word when it comes to players in CBA negotiations and everything that's related to the working arrangements here between the players and the owner. So that was not very well received. Obviously, the players felt like they gave quite a bit to the owners, by putting the risk involved associated with the return to play for the playoffs, moving away from their families for such an extended period of time, and they're just really not impressed that the owners are coming back here already. Some felt the fact that maybe everything that was negotiated before, I understand that obviously things can change, and they can change quickly in the kind of environments we're dealing with this pandemic, but some of the players kind of felt like they wonder if the NHL owners kind of expected more of this before, and they're just kind of coming back here now that they kind of have an agreement in place, trying to kind of, slip this in here and get this adjusted before they actually play anything. So they're not overly impressed. Another important factor here as well is that several new contracts signed this offseason, including the deals we saw for guys like Pietrangelo and Krug, were structured exactly to take advantage of the lower escrow years. Like a lot of free agents that have signed deals have done so in a manner to try to get the most money in their pockets. Obviously, that's usually how things are structured. And they kind of went, the year-by-year structure was kind of aligned with what was negotiated in the memorandum of understanding to go along with this new CBA for what the escrow limits were going to be each year and the salary deferrals and all that kind of stuff. So, obviously a lot of contracts were just done, and now we're already coming back for a change. And the players are just incredibly unhappy with all this, and they're starting to feel a lack of trust. Now, ultimately here, the players may have to give a little bit to kind of make this work. It does sound, based on what Elliotte Friedman is saying, that the players still want to play, the owners still want to play. He does not feel that this is going to derail the season completely, but it is certainly going to make everybody take a step back and certainly take things longer to come to an agreement on negotiations. Obviously, one of the things that was mentioned as well is they're certainly looking like the NHL will definitely be realigned. The Canadian division, like I said, is also pretty much an absolute certainty, and then the other divisions are going to be lined up as well throughout the U.S. for regional play. We're likely looking at around a 60-game season if we can get something ironed out here relatively soon. Otherwise, that number is going to end up dropping, and I would think that the players are going to be coming back and saying, if we have to give a little bit more to get this on show on the road, then we're going to want something in return here as well. Maybe they ask for expanded playoffs. Obviously, the expanded playoffs from last year was indicated by the league that they weren't real keen on doing that again, but at the same time, it could help boost league revenues. I mean, more games means more revenue, so that could be something that the players push for. So hopefully they can find common ground on all this stuff and make something happen. Obviously, they've been doing a pretty good job of keeping a lot of this stuff private so it doesn't kind of boil over in public and look bad like we saw with Major League Baseball. Those negotiations got public and got ugly, and it was a really bad look for especially the league and that side of things. So, I'm sure the NHL does not want that. And it doesn't matter, and it also doesn't sound like the options being presented by the league were like an ultimatum. It wasn't like you have to pick one of the two or we're not playing. It didn't sound like that. In years past, when we've had NHL lockouts, the negotiating tactics that were used were kind of sounding more like they were kind of trying to force their hand, and they were heading down that road towards a lockout, and they were going to do that to get what they wanted at the end anyways. This does not seem to have that same feel. And Elliotte Friedman, like I said, is also reporting he doesn't think it's going to lead to anything like that. So I guess we'll hope he's right for right now. Obviously, this is a step backwards, but hopefully not a complete roadblock. And hopefully they can come to terms here and figure something out in short order so we can have a 2021 NHL season to look forward to shortly after Christmas into January. So let me know your thoughts on all the latest when it comes to the owners and the players. What do you think needs to give and take here on both sides to make this work? Let me know your thoughts down below and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.